Welcome to the Conscious Publicist Podcast, a space where thoughts become ideas to advocate for a more conscious human experience in the media. Our thoughts and ideas inspire action, and the most notable leaders and organizations have transformed thoughts and ideas into global initiatives that have impacted the lives of millions. My name is Ashley Graham, and as a woman-owned business founder and publicist, I guide leaders, visionaries, and creators in discovering their conscious media voice and methodologies that inspire connection, community, and impact through aligned media channels. In this podcast, we'll dive into public relations, thought leadership, business, and entrepreneurship, all through the lens of being a conscious human being. I'll take you behind the scenes into the habits, thoughts, and modalities that have helped leaders shift past paradigms of limiting beliefs, comparison, and self-doubt to show up for themselves to become the subject matter experts they were called to be. Subscribe to the show on Apple or Spotify and join us on this journey of awakening the conscious, enlightened leader within you. What if the stories that keep you stuck aren't really your stories? In today's conversation, I'm talking with Heather Chauvin, a leadership coach who helps successful women live, work, and parent authentically and courageously on their own terms. Heather started her career as a social worker, helping adults understand children's behavior. But it wasn't until 2013, when she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, that she was pushed to take a deeper stand for change and discover how cultural expectations can sabotage our dreams. Heather has navigated some of life's most defining moments and emerged with a fierce dedication to helping women distinguish between the roles society tries to impose and the truth that is trying to emerge from within. In our talk, Heather isn't here to give you another 5-step plan or an inspirational quote. Instead, she's pulling back the curtain to show what transformation really looks like, the messy, uncomfortable, yet beautiful process of learning to trust yourself so completely that you stop asking permission to live your life. We discuss why anger might be your greatest teacher, how to have conversations with your emotions as if they were children trying to get your attention, and the moment when you stop running from feeling bad and start asking, how good can this actually get? If you've ever felt the divide between your private self and who you think you need to be in public, this conversation could offer the wisdom you're looking for. Heather, I am so grateful to have you here with me today. I am so excited for this conversation, and quite frankly, I'm just excited to be in community with you. A question that I have for you to help get us started, and I would love to see how our conversation expands from here, but given that I love stories, and I love the stories that activate the voices of incredibly talented women, what part of your story do you feel that you are ready to share more of this year? And it might be a story that you've been hesitant to share in the past, but now feels ready to be told.
So the first time you said this to me, I was thinking, what haven't I told? Because I've told so much of my story. But what I will say is something that is making me, I always pay attention to what's making me angry or frustrated. And it's not my story. It's actually watching other women believe their stories. And what I mean by that is we have our truth, like the truth within us that truly wants to come up and out versus like who the world tells us we need to be or the roles that we play. And oftentimes, because I work primarily with women, they're telling themselves this story of this is what motherhood has to look like, or this is what I'm only capable of, or I can't do this because of this. And I actually get angry and frustrated with those stories because I'm like, that is not your truth. And it took me a really long time coming into my journey. Mothering was the thing that cracked me open almost 20 years ago. And then in 2013, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and I've wrote a book on it, Dying to be a Good Mother. I storytell for a living, all the things. And people say, "Oh, I'm so inspired by you. I'm so inspired by you." And I always think, but just because you're inspired doesn't mean your life is going to change. You have to have the courage to look at the stories you are telling yourself as to why you can or cannot do something. And so I get really frustrated with the self oppression, that the perpetuating our own oppression that women do on themselves. And that's really what I'm stepping into this year.
I just know that's going to be so transformative for anybody who is able to be in that connection with you to go through that transformation. Immediately when you said anger, it was like a dagger in the best way possible because I know exactly what that experience is like. I actually wrote an article about this over on my personal platform, Simply Ashley Graham, about how to alchemize our anger for creative expression. And creative expression could be simply knowing how to express to create more connection in your personal relationships. Say it's your partner, your family, your children, or it could be for those who want to share more of that voice publicly, to stand behind the initiatives that they want to advocate for, and to help other women understand how to alchemize more of their emotions to add more creativity to the work that they want to do. I know that you probably have so many practices and methodologies as to how you channel that for yourself, or maybe even women in your community, but coach us a little bit. How would you go through taking that anger as a way to alchemize for transformation for other people or even yourself?
So, the first thing that's coming up for me is oftentimes people come to me because there's a challenge they're experiencing, like a pain point, and they might say, "Oh, I want to make more money," or "I want more connection in my relationships," or "I want to see and understand my children's behavior. I want to find meaning. I want to find purpose," or "My business is not sustainable and I need to find realignment and figure out where I'm headed, what I'm doing." You can feel it. It's very external. It's, I need to make more money because that's culturally appropriate, or I need to figure out this parenting thing or this challenge because if I don't, I have failed on a primal level as a woman or as a mother, or I need to create good connections in my marriage because that therefore means I'm a good wife or I'm a good woman or whatever it is. And I'm like, but that's not what your soul is craving. We both know this. And when we're wearing like a hat or a lens of mother, business owner, like whatever your role is, I actually think it does create a disconnect. And so often, when I'm working with somebody, example, there's this woman right now in my community, and she's very quiet. And we actually did a storytelling workshop. And she goes, I don't know. I don't know what I want. I think I may be leaving this relationship, or there's a disconnect here. And you can just see that she's stuck. She's stuck because she refuses to take action, because she knows the second she takes action, things are going to shift in her life if she is truly honest. And so she went through the storytelling workshop that I was teaching. And she came out on the other side and she told a story. And I could hear her voice shake. I could feel her emotion bubbling up and out, but I also saw the connection that she created with the other people that she told her story about. And it was about having the courage to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. I don't like that saying life is happening to you or for you. But when you're experiencing that anger, that frustration, that resentment, it's a symptom. It's a symptom of life trying to get your attention. I call it a breadcrumb. So I'm like, don't worry about having to blow up your life. Don't worry about, oh, I need to change careers, or I need this all or nothing mentality that so many people have. Look inside of yourself and go, what is this? And it could be storytelling, it could be breath work, it could be something else, but I go right to the source. So I go to anger, I go to frustration, I ask it two questions. It could be pen to paper in a journal, or you could be on a walk with yourself. You could be doing dishes, you could be changing a diaper, and you ask two questions. And I say, anger or resentment or frustration, why are you here? And then I ask it, what do you need from me to feel safe to leave my body? Most of the time, like if you are not used to talking to yourself in this way, if you're not used to having this intimate relationship with your emotion, you're going to be like, what the heck? I don't know. I don't know what I want, because we're so trapped in our head and we have to get back into our bodies with the mind body connection. So maybe it's starting with pen and paper just for 2 minutes a day and going, why are you here? And what do you need from me to feel safe to leave my body? And I started treating my emotions, especially the ones that I didn't want to experience anymore, anger, anxiety, all of those things, overwhelm, as if they were children, as if they were toddlers trying to get my energy and attention. And once I started doing that, everything shifted by how I showed up in the world, how I co created with myself. And I truly believe, like, externally, we're saying it's the job, it's the relationship, it's this, it's that. But when we go from the inside out, we become aligned, and that's where things start to shift and point us in the right direction.
I think even expanding a little bit more about what you were sharing about understanding our own psyche and body connection. As I was listening to you speak, I started thinking about my own processes of how I alchemize my emotions or simply just understand my emotions. I used to be very much that woman who was in her head. My psyche, my cerebral thoughts actually led a lot of who I was and how I self identified up until I started that mind body soul connection work and a number of methodologies, a number of practices. I've been on this journey for quite some time. But how I've been able to understand that connection with myself, obviously, it started with understanding journaling and how I transcribe and bring that energy through writing. But I've been able to understand my own inner dialogues more. I feel that there's almost this split dialogue sometimes where I can hear a certain voice that is speaking from anxiety or fear or limiting beliefs, whereas I have this other internal dialogue that feels so expansive. And it's this voice that sounds like it is spoken through the most beautiful microphone that ever existed, one that is so elevated and beautiful to the sound. When I'm able to understand that dialogue and what that dialogue is speaking through me, that's how I know that I'm onto something big. That's how I know that I'm meant to bring whatever that voice is trying to tell me to the forefront. And that's actually how I alchemize all of my content is through understanding that voice and what it's ready to share. And that's what drives the rest of it. So
Yeah.
I love how you set that up. I know that there's like some people who actually don't have that inner dialogue. I think it's just the way that some of our brains are wired and how our bodies work. But I think that there's still other ways that you can understand that connection of self even more, maybe just more external practices. I know physical activity is a way for people to tap into that energy as well. Me, I'm all about let's go inside.
Yeah. I feel every time I talk to someone, I love having diverse conversations. So, whether people have different belief systems or different, I wouldn't even say values, because I truly believe there's a through line. It's almost like a language. We're so obsessed with labels and titles and what's the tool, what's the trick, what's the hack, what's the strategy. I'm like, guys, if you talk to 100 different people who are aligned and happy and on a journey of self-discovery, everyone is saying the same thing, regardless of what book they read it in or what religion they follow or what modality they're utilizing. And we have to, for me, in general, I'm like, it's this relationship with self. And when I go back to starting my journey, it was because I no longer wanted to feel this contrast. And so I wouldn't say I was seeking external validation because I wasn't necessarily seeking validation from anyone else, but I did put power in, oh, you have the answer. You have the answer better than me. And then when I got the feedback of suck it up, buttercup, you're supposed to feel like shit. Motherhood is supposed to suck the life out of you. Yep, work-life balance doesn't exist. And I thought, but I can't live like this. This is not sustainable. I had to really rely on that intuition, that inner guidance system, per se, that people call it. And it had developed such a intimate relationship with myself that at a very young age, I listened to myself, except I didn't understand the language of managing that energy. And I could hear, like you were saying, I could hear both sides, like the anxiety, the fear, the overwhelm, and I could hear the inner knowing, the wisdom in there. But when you're younger, you're just following the anxiety, you're following the fear because you don't have the control per se, or to complete control of your whole life to make those decisions. So as I've gotten older, I've had to realize listening to that deep self-trust, that internal guidance system, the intuition, the wisdom, whatever you want to call it, is the way, it's the path. And every single time I'm working with somebody, I'm like, what do you think you want? What do you think you should do? And they're like, I don't know. Tell me. And I'm like, why are we so hardwired that somebody else outside of me knows better than me? Because when you're listening deep within yourself of what do I want? How do I want to feel? What do I crave? How do I want to parent? What type of work do I want to do? What do I love about my work? What don't I love about it anymore? And then you start leading from that place. This is where alignment happens. This is where we begin to deeply trust ourselves. And it takes courage to do that. And because the second, I'm sure you've experienced this, the second you decide to lead from that place, you ruffle feathers on the outside and then it challenges you. Is this what I want? Is this what I don't want? And to me, that's the journey.
I wholeheartedly agree. Using those two senses of identity or those two inner dialogues, putting the attention there. I am a firm believer that our dualistic experiences are here for a reason. We are supposed to experience fear, anxiety, worry, areas that we're feeling stuck in order to even be able to understand what we need to do. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I feel that sometimes the student needs to understand their own emotions and sometimes the icky emotions that aren't necessarily comfortable to be in those moments. But I feel that, again, that is how we understand ourselves more. We don't always understand ourselves through the moments of expansion and growth and everything just magically and serendipitously working out for us. The yin and yang symbol exists for a reason. And to understand light, we have to understand the dark, and we have that within ourselves. So I believe that there's always this beautiful balance that needs to happen in order to understand and alchemize the true essence of who we are.
Yeah. I think once you come to accept that, then there's no judgment. And you're judging less. Example, it is freezing cold where I live. Every winter, I'm like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I can't live here anymore. I can't do this. And every year, I also observe myself getting lighter and more accepting of the winter season and going, okay, yeah, I can get out of here, but I can also sit in it. I can accept it. I can retreat. But how do I want to feel in this season? And I guess my point of what I'm saying is when the more you are aligned in your life, the more fulfilled you are. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, like wherever you go, there you are, right? And so, yes, I can go somewhere. There might be palm trees and sun, but there is this like accepting of it, if that makes sense. Like the light and the dark, everything is temporary. Like yesterday, for example, I was like, okay, I got a big to-do list. I got things to do. And it wasn't happening. I was like, you know what? Let's just take a day and then these things will get done. I have the capacity. I have the capacity to move things around. but it was an acceptance instead of self-judgment of I got to push, I got to push, I got to push. And it's we can take the action, but when it's more aligned action and you deeply know and trust what is this, you begin to accept the darkness with the light and know that if we want to feel the joy and the ease and the spaciousness, if you actually want to feel that stuff, like everyone's, I want to feel alive, I want to feel energized. I'm like, you got to be willing to experience the opposite as well so that you can even know what it's like to feel and your capacity to feel on those levels too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I can just think about what 2024 was for me. I went through a very long journey with understanding grief as a really big influence in my life in so many different ways. And part of the wisdom that really came through me through that year was that I allowed myself to feel the grief and the complexities of the grief in every single opportunity I could. Now, there was a lot of my identity that I felt that also was shifted during that time frame. My business had to be put on pause because I didn't know how to give attention or energy outside of my own healing and my own mourning process, given that there were deaths of loved ones involved. And if I was to look back at a different paradigm of my life, given that I was extremely career driven and extremely independent, I would have really struggled with having to hold on to those identities while also grieving and mourning at the same time and experiencing what that was meant to teach me. But given just how the cards laid, it actually ended up transforming very beautifully. I realized that my own healing was always meant to be my core focus that year, and everything else was okay to be put on pause. And it's amazing to be here in this point in time. I'm so grateful that I gave myself that space to heal and feel because I learned so much more about myself in that year than I think I would have ever really learned in any other capacity. So again, those seasons, I feel they come not to just completely shake your foundation, which sometimes it feels like it is. It feels unfair and it feels uncomfortable. And you're like, why is this happening to me? But if
Yeah.
you can just allow yourself to ground and center in those moments, you will get these light bulb moments where you're like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
This is reminding me of, I'm hoping that those days will come, those seasons will come. And I'm like, okay, I've been here so many times before. Surrender, surrender. I will never forget a friend of mine. He was trying to teach me surfing. And he goes, you know, what the most peaceful places on the bottom of the ocean. And I was like, what? And he goes, when a big wave comes and you get tumbled, do not fight it. Just surrender to it. You will fall to the bottom and then you will come back up so much quicker than if you were trying to fight that wave that is coming at you. Let yourself surrender. You're going to be scared, but you will bounce back up. And when I was 18, I became a mother. Of course, I was terrified. And then 9 years later, that's when I had my cancer diagnosis. And after I became a mother, I dove into personal development. I started reading the books, getting the mentors, doing all the things. But it wasn't until my diagnosis that I surrendered. And I heard the term, but I didn't know what the feeling was. And I was like, I gotta do, I gotta do, I gotta do, I gotta do. And I remember when I got my diagnosis, I went outside in the hospital once they told me I had cancer. And I looked up, and at the time, and even now, I have a very unique relationship with God, source, universe. It's my own, it's incredibly personal. And I looked up and I'm like, okay, whoever I'm talking to, whatever I'm talking to, angels, whatever, guides, you finally have my attention. I said that out loud. Okay, I'll listen. I will listen. And it wasn't that I would surrender and do nothing. It was a feeling of I will pay attention now and I will slow down to be intentional with my actions. And how I took that is I'm still, quote unquote, ambitious. I still have dreams and desires. But when I say like for the more, it's this richness, it's a feeling, it's I have friends and colleagues, I'm sure you do too, that are like, I'm like, what race are you in? They're just like, more, I gotta do it, I gotta do it. I'm like, your pace is exhausting. And behind closed doors that they're running away from something. Like they're running it, but it looks so good on the outside. Everybody wants the accolades. And I'm like, I want that. But at the same time, I know that what I'm after is a feeling and I'm not running away from anything anymore. And so after my diagnosis, I had to face all parts of me, not just running towards the quote unquote goals that I could check off and seek validation. I also had to face my deepest fears. I had to give myself permission. Like literally, I remember checking off a box. I'm done suffering. Yes, I will experience pain. I will have to sit in moments of crazy emotional discomfort, but I am done intentional suffering from avoidance. And I'm like, there's a big difference here. So your relationship changes with your emotions, your relationship changes with your journey of life, and your identity changes. And I want to do quote unquote all the things, but I also can experience the richness of a slow morning and having a slow morning, having a cup of coffee, having a conversation with my husband, and having nowhere to go. I'm like, this is freedom. Have I failed because my to-do list was supposed to start at 5 a.m. with doing this? No. And so this is about co-creating our lives with what we want and desire, and that there is no actual perfect timeline. There is no actual perfect to-do list or way to be successful. Everyone has their own way of being. And I truly believe that the journey is figuring out how to be kinder to yourself while also still having the courage to go after what your soul is deeply craving, what that little whisper is telling you, and not being so afraid of fear and guilt and overwhelm and anxiety and all the things that we're trying to run away from. It's like you got to figure out how to co-create with them.
I could not have asked for a better evolution of this conversation from when we started in the beginning. And that speaks to how powerful storytelling can be. But at the end of the day, storytelling is so much more than just putting words to thoughts on paper or on the computer or however you transcribe. Storytelling really comes through the ways that we transform as people and the ways that we transform. Sometimes there's moments that are not very pretty and it feels like nothing is moving forward. It feels like we are completely stuck and stagnant. But those moments where you feel stuck and stagnant are the moments that are actually teaching you so much about what is to come. And I love how you continue to put the emphasis of surrendering. Surrendering for me, again, very similar, was cerebrally understanding what the word meant, but it took time after time and experience again to really understand how to put surrendering into practice. For me, it had to become a practice. And if there's anything that my year last year taught me was to completely surrender and just let everything shed away the way that it needed to. And the most beautiful thing is I never felt moments of lack. I never felt lack that I wasn't going to connect with the people that I needed to connect with. I didn't feel lack in financials. I didn't feel lack in security or safety or whatever it was. And that alone, I think, is how I knew that I was on the precipice of something big.
Mhm.
I wanted to shift into this term of brilliance because I'm like teeter-tottering, incorporating this word brilliance into the dialogue of the podcast. But I think brilliance can be understood in different ways. Like brilliance for me is understanding the courage of self to step into new versions, to let things shed away, to welcome in completely new experiences and paradigm shifts. But I think brilliance is also just owning every single part of you and your story and your experiences as the gold that needs to be told. I feel that you might even have your own understanding of brilliance, but where do you feel that your brilliance really shines through? And it could be something that we've already talked about already, but I would love to know What do you believe is your true brilliance, and what brilliance are you looking forward to sharing more?
You're really getting me thinking today because this word I don't think about often. The interesting part, and maybe I'll get to the point, but the interesting part is I never tried to find genius or brilliance or strengths or what I was good at. I started my journey because I was running away from feeling like shit. I was running away from my fear of failure, running away of literally trying not to die and trying to survive. And the more I kept doing the work, and when I say the work, it was teaching it, it was leaning in, whether I was just trying to be healthier, like physically, whether I was trying to figure out my mindset or increase financial abundance, like on paper. I remember a moment in particular where I felt like I switched from running away, like the fear, right? Like running away from the problem towards this mindset shift or identity shift of how good can I feel? How good can life get? And so when I reflect on brilliance today, I think the courage or my courage to relentlessly ask myself, how good can this get? Like this life, but from a healthy place, not running from something. But I never intended to start a journey like this. It was just from this fear of physically dying. And it started with this emotional fear of dying and a spiritual fear of dying. And I had to experience death over death over death, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, of myself and going, not this. And then realizing what I was doing the whole time was figuring out how to live and how to feel alive and to actually live. And then that's what I started teaching people. So that's my answer to your question.
That was
I would be
beautiful.
curious. I would be curious what you heard me say.
Again, there was that emphasis of courage. But the fact that you even mentioned that you had to go through all of these different fears of the exact same experience. That's the duality of our lives. There's the emotional complexity of our fears, there's the physical complexity of our fears, and then there's the spiritual complexity of our fears. And they all are connected and balanced with one, and it's all part of the same journey, but we almost do have to take each part of those as anchors. And I feel that if you were to, if you didn't already, I know that you said that you wrote a book, but it's like, I feel that is the brilliance that you would be able to share because you are the person who knows from your experience what that has been like and how to help and guide other people who might be experiencing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, were there resources or books or literature that helped you through those moments to be able to navigate that experience?
I've always, and I would say right now in my journey, I'm not super attracted to these, but I was very much attracted to the work of Wayne Dyer or Louise Hay, like the OGs of, I say the OGs of spirituality, but it's probably personal development because that's more newer personal development. Really about mastering your mind. Anything that had to do with mastering your mind, not believing the stories that you tell yourself. I would say the law of attraction or the secret, but I would not say that was absolutely transformational because I think there was a huge gap in there of the action part. It was like, think about it, manifest it. And it was like, but do nothing. Like they really missed out that action piece, which I feel so many people are like, I have it. I'm meditating. I'm doing it. I'm like, and you're taking no courageous action. Like there is some logical, real world things that you need to do in order to push the energy to move to manifest things. But on the other side of that, there was a book by Robin Sharma called The Monk Who, not The Monk Who Stole His Ferrari, that was like a well-known one. The Leader Without a Title. And I'm trying to look over here. I don't see it here. The Leader Who Had No Title. I don't know why that book made such an impact. It was a small little fable, about a man who worked in a bookstore. And I think what I took away from it was you don't have to have these big titles to make an impact in the world. Everyone is so looking for the accolades or I need to be on big stages. And it was just like the simple, subtle things that this gentleman did to make an impact in the ripple effect of how it made in other people's lives. And I talk a lot about parenting and relationships, and we're trying to make big impacts in the world. And I'm like, it all starts at home. It all starts with how you lead, how you show up, how you manage your emotions. And so I would say that was the biggest impact. And on me now, I'm still trying to figure out what that next level is because I think I'm all personal development out. And I hear that from a lot of people too. So it's really just tapping into the inner wisdom and listening to that and figuring out where I want to be guided.
Yeah, we are certainly aligned there. Being in that stasis of overwhelm of just too much consumption. There's a fine line, especially if you are as integrated into the online space as I'm sure we both are.
But I will say what I am deeply attracted to these days is not the how to or five simple steps. It's I'm going to pull back the curtains for you and I'm going to tell you how I did this. It's not my methodology, it's behind the scenes of the journey. It's the stories that I'm attracted to, but the real authentic stories, not the masked lipstick on a pig presented ones. It's tell me what really happened. Tell me about your fears. Tell me about the crying in fetal position moments. And that's what I respect when I'm listening to creators. I'm like, tell me the truth. Don't give me the polished version.
That right there, you just spoke as like an advocate for what I'm hoping to achieve through the Conscious Publicist podcast is telling the stories that people need and want to hear the most. The methodologies, the modalities, all of that is incredible. And like you said, the how to, but we learn so much from the people that we are in connection and community with. And we
Yeah.
understand their lived experiences through being in connection with them. I've always been a people person. I used to say that I did PR, people relations, because at the end of the day, it's all relationships and connections and understanding people, their stories, where they came from, how they got to where they are now. And I love being in conversation. There's so much that you can learn and soak up from that.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm like, there's the logic of trying to make a decision. And I'm like, you need to talk to people. Whether you're trying to start something and you're like, okay, I need to have my product, I need to have the website, talk to other humans, like deeply listen to what people are struggling with, see how you can be of service. But in a group, when I'm not leading, oh, wow, the amount of wisdom that can come from a deeply soulful, intellectual conversation with women in a community that is priceless, absolutely priceless. I can smell it a mile away too when I ask people, like, hey, how did you do that? And when they're like, oh, it's easy, I just did. I'm like, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I want to know the truth. I always say there's two types of people, and you can see the person that made something happen and then the person that kind of gave up. And I'm like, something is off here. The reason why it's not working is because there's something you're not listening to. But at the end of the day, you have to have perseverance and grit to finish something. And it's the becoming journey of that. That took me a really long time to accept that. Why is this so hard? Why is it this? And I'm like, oh, that is the journey. The journey is the growth. It is the repetitions. It is what you put into place to implement to become the type of person that achieves something. And if you just don't give up, I used to feel like failure was like not succeeding in something. And then I realized, oh, failure is when you have decided to quit. So momentum is a beautiful thing as long as you don't stop, just chip away a little bit each day, you're golden. It is so easy to win these days if you just don't give up.
I feel that the conversation around failure and shifting the perspective around failure could be a whole other topic. Like for
Yeah.
me, failure is not necessarily a moment when something ends. I think it's an experience where I learn what isn't working and to look at that and understand maybe why it's not working and then try something new that can blend with it. Really learned about my shift in perspective around failure through business. If you really want to learn about yourself, especially as a spiritual person, start a business because you will learn quite a lot.
Yeah, it's personal growth on steroids, that's for sure.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for this conversation. Again, I'm over here buzzing on the inside. Like I can feel my energy so elevated right now. The way that this transpired and evolved, it was so beautiful. If you are seeking to connect with those who are tuning in, tell them how they can find you. And if you have any incredible initiatives that you're working on that you would like to invite them to.
Yeah, so they can definitely check me out on my podcast, Emotionally Uncomfortable. I talk all the things over there and I go deep into wants the tools and strategies, but a lot of what it truly takes to live in alignment with how you want to feel, whether it's at home and or in your work. I talk a lot about time as well. So if you go to my website, Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com, there's a free resource section. You can see it there. We have time rich reset challenges. We have all the free resources that you need. I like giving the strategy piece because I like, here, go do this, go do this, go do this. And then we talk about the deep self trust and all of that. So I'm a little bit of a duality of both. And I always like to say, too, if you have listened to this conversation, you can check me out on Instagram, my name at Heather Chauvin. And go send me a private message. Let me know what you took away from this and let's connect.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I will be sure to include all those details down in the show notes for those who might want to connect and follow up on those later on. A big thank you to everyone who has tuned in today. I hope you got as much nuggets of wisdom as I did, and I will be definitely riding the high of this conversation for the rest of the day. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone.